back to New Rockstars. I'm Jessica Clemons, and this is a breakdown of episode 3 in Daredevil Born Again. And this episode, whew, dang, between this and Invincible, I'm not really in a good place emotionally. And I'm starting to blur the lines, between reality and supervillains. I just can't be living like this. This episode ends in such a horrible way that honestly, I should have expected this. I should have seen this coming because we can't have anything. Regardless, let's go through this episode scene by scene to find those Easter eggs and missed details that you might have missed. But first, of course, before we really get into it, make sure to check out nerdride.shop where you can always grab the latest and greatest in New Rockstars merch. Right now, we've got some designs for Daredevil Born Again, like this Daredevil and Punisher face shirt. I know right now this is probably the last face you want to see. I'll tell you right now, this is a Frank Castle face, not the guy that, just did what he did at the end of this episode. Okay, let's get into the breakdown. This episode begins in complete darkness, accompanied by only the sound of jingling keys, a buzzer, and the opening of the gate doors. So it's a jail or a prison. This opening sequence in darkness, accompanied by sounds, is reminiscent of episode 1, where we first heard helicopters flying over vibrant nightlife of New York City, and episode 2, which started in darkness with suspenseful music that led up to the introduction of our newly elected mayor, Wilson Fisk. The door behind Matt says 436, and to the right is the Great Seal of New York. Last week's Foggy Nelson dying episode had an Easter egg regarding Nelson, Murdoch, and Page being at number 468 that corresponds to the original issue number of the 1998 Daredevil comic in which Foggy Nelson fakes his own death. So y'all got me looking up all these different addresses in the show forever now. However, issue number 436 of Daredevil, legacy number 436, issue number 56 of Bendis is Man Without Fear, it has Matt post-reclaiming Hell's Kitchen as the new kingpin, banishing most, if not all, crime. Though the crime just kind of shifted to other neighborhoods, messing with Luke Cage, Spider-Man, Reed Richards, and Doctor Strange's neighborhoods. So it doesn't correspond to this episode. However, it addresses a similar situation in this episode, coming out as the man behind the mask and the risks it involves, which can make you and others targets. In custody, Hector brings up Luquillo and Puerto Rico, a beautiful beach town. He says it's got white sands and the Coquis, which are little tiny tree frogs native to Puerto Rico. As a reminder, the first White Tiger comic character was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and introduced in 1975 in Marvel Comics. Though we don't spend much time learning where he came from, I do enjoy the show's desire to speak about it. After the intro montage, I don't know whether we acknowledged it before, but as the track fades out, so does the string of slow heartbeats. It could be Foggy's as he passed away earlier, reminding us who Matt is really doing all of this for. And I love these little pieces of only sound, if you haven't noticed. One key aspect I've always been fascinated by since the Netflix series Daredevil is the idea of exploring what the audiences can hear during moments of complete darkness. In the show about a blind superhero who relies on his heightened senses to fight, the sound I expect should always tell another story, if not heighten the main narrative. This brings us to the sounds of waves crashing, sirens blaring, and we're at the pier. Devlin tries to steal a truck from two guys driving it, and we saw Devlin in episode 1 at the meeting with Vanessa. He works for Luca. One of the guys protests to giving him the truck, so they both end up getting shot and dead. We learn later that this is near Red Hook Port. Then we cut to another BB report set to Salvi's Micanto. Residents talk about feeling safe in the city and whether New York will even make it. Interestingly, the first man says this wild, out-of-pocket thing.
Like somebody invades my privacy, I have no problem taking my piece and putting it to their head. That's it.
It feels like foreshadowing, both literally and metaphorically. Literally, someone will get a piece to their head at the end of this episode, but metaphorically, his sentiment reflects the values we think the new anti-vigilante Punisher group embraces. In simple terms, it's about taking justice into your own hands, which we know, again, foreshadowing, they're going to do at the end. I can't get over this ending. I hate it. BB's clapboard reads the date that she shot, which is April 9th, 2024. Not to say that this is precisely the date in the show, in case this footage was shot, a ways back ago. A lot happened around that day, though. The fallout of Shang-Chi and bits of Falcon and the Winter Soldier were around April 9th, 2024. I'd also like to add that this is like 6 months after everyone returned from being blipped, so they're acting kind of crazy for people that just came back to Earth. We transition to this man who must be a fan favorite because he's the same one from the BB report in episode 2 saying, "You want answers? I don't have them." Then we see this pointed metal fence to a reflection of Wilson Fisk at his table. This sequence just reminds me of Healy from the Daredevil Netflix series. After giving up Fisk's name, he was so afraid that he lunged at a sharp grated fence sense. I don't think this is to say that this man knows Fisk's secrets in the BB report. More so, you ain't gonna find folks snitching or sharing secrets in these New York City streets. Otherwise, you end up like Healy. Fisk eats his daily, now healthier, white egg omelet across from Vanessa. The first time we saw them share this breakfast ritual was in season 1. She hugged him from behind, helped him pick out his clothes for the day, etc. This mood is very different. It's very off. The table is super long and they sit at opposite sides, separated by distance and a large floral centerpiece. Vanessa mentions Bacon's Freud triptych coming up for auction. The painter Francis Bacon's 3 oil paintings tiled the 3 studies of Lucian Freud. It was sold for $142.4 million back in 2013, the highest price attained for art at an auction at the time. So Vanessa had some really expensive ass taste. Vanessa says she could wash $200 million through that sale, so she's obviously been laundering money by buying expensive art. She's obviously annoyed that Fisk won't let her, as she says this.
I know that it hurts to just sit by, but I'm reaching for higher goals.
Such as?
So it seems like she's pissed that he hasn't discussed why he's doing this with her. They've always been super open about everything. She knew early on that he ran a criminal empire. In season 3, she wanted to be an equal partner in that, knowing everything, being in every meeting. So now that she doesn't even know his goals in becoming mayor, it's another sign of how far this relationship has been deteriorating. Sheila enters and tells Fisk about the double homicide near the Red Hook port. Because it's such a hot spot so far in these 3 episodes, let's remember what we know about Red Hook so far in the series. In episode 1, Foggy said he stashed Benny after something went down in Red Hook. The different criminal factions debate turf, saying that Red Hook was exempt. Sheila says this doesn't help sell Red Hook as a destination spot, so I guess Fisk is trying to drive tourism here, or at least keep it clean for non-criminal things. What we know about Red Hook right now is it's a dangerous place. Criminals do stuff here, but also they want to change it for a better tomorrow. I don't know. We need to keep an eye on Red Hook. He tells her to make the appropriate calls and inspire Chief Gallo to prioritize it. As Sheila gives this news, Vanessa gives a face that's like, there was no double homicides when I was in charge of things around here. And let me tell you, I'm growing up Team Vanessa. She's growing on me. Fisk tells Vanessa that the world of violence is none of their concern, but we get a close-up of his bloody knuckles, indicating it's absolutely still a concern. We don't know who Fisk is beating on. A wall? Vanessa's lover Adam? We just don't know yet. I feel like by episode 4, we'll start to learn who he's really been taking his anger out on. And I've been pitching that it's a wall, and this is just his way of getting his anger out, because he's still a very, angry man. As we transition away from his unashamed knuckles, the scene cuts to Matt washing his hands in private. The sting of the water reminds him of his last fight. A heavenly yet dark choir accompanies a light orchestra, highlighting the juxtaposition in this scene. He hears Powell echoing in a conversation. Powell is the cop whose blood painted the fridge and the floor, because he's a punk ass bitch. Officer Powell enters, so he's not dead, and I was completely wrong. That smashing on the fridge and hitting his neck on the ground didn't kill him, didn't hurt him at all. He just got a bruise. That was too much blood everywhere for that just to be a bruise, but whatever. To each their own. He and Matt both threaten each other, and Powell says Matt's interfering with the police investigation and the judge could throw him off his case. Matt says he could charge Powell with witness tampering. So, Your Honor, my 30 years of law and justice education through Law and Order SVU, I'd say these 2 men are even Stevens. With that hold up in court, I think I could talk to the judge like he's a bro and maybe we'd hit it off. We jump to Slayer's cryonics plane and this mural, if you will call it that. The iconic Punisher logo on the brick wall with triggered on the skull. At the bottom of the skull, you can see the outline of the Statue of Liberty and the New York buildings. A little white box with Muse painted in black is to the lower right. A lot of Muse's artwork is open to interpretation, but to me, this artist has been created in the dark underbelly of New York, witnessing the worst aspects of the city that often go unnoticed. And I believe that the Muse knows that there are corrupt members within the NYPD who operate under the guise of the Punisher and have a disdain for superpowered vigilantes. This group of sub-NYPD members oversees the city, as depicted at the bottom of the skull. The tagging on the forehead saying triggered likely just symbolizes their immediate and emotional reactions to their values and motives being threatened, foreshadowing the events that will unfold at the end of this episode when our boy is killed because it's not fair. Vigilantes are unjust. I don't like what happens at the end so much that I hate any person that could have been impacting it. This is also outside WH Christian and Sons, a real place in Brooklyn. This is where Cherry stashed Nikki Torres for safekeeping. There's also a little red ribbon on the trees outside. You can see it from a different angle over here. I'm sure it's just from New Year's Eve, but it's specifically red, which makes me go Daredevil or Elektra. Mainly Daredevil, but it also could mean, that tree is protected or safe, because sometimes they do that. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. Relationships are complicated, all of them, even the good ones, especially the good ones, and navigating any relationship takes a a lot of work and a lot of introspection. If you find yourself stuck in a pattern of pulling away when somebody starts to get close or feeling jealous of your partner's friends, that's gonna get in the way of a meaningful relationship that could otherwise be enriching in your life. That's something therapy can help you with, and our sponsor, BetterHelp, can help you get started. Instead of being stuck in an endless loop of questioning yourself, you can talk through relationship concerns with someone who's trained to help you find real answers. BetterHelp has made starting therapy as easy as taking a quiz. Just fill out a questionnaire and you will be matched with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. Easily switch therapists anytime at no extra cost if it's not the right fit. They carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help you if you have any questions. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Going to therapy is a sign of strength, not weakness. There are so many kinds of relationships that can be improved by therapy, not just romantic ones. Click the link in the description, scan the QR code, or go to betterhelp.com/newrockstars to get 10% off your first month of therapy. We're now at Hector Ayala's trial. The DA questions Powell. He's been a cop for 15 years and received 3 commendations of excellence. But what's 15 years if you were blipped? Or the 3 that y'all have been partners? If they were blipped, I feel like we should be suspicious of their activities during the blip, if you get what I mean. During the trial, while Powell is on the stand, he describes the wild look Hector had the night of the incident. Then the camera shifts to his wife, Soledad, who then looks to Hector. Hector begins to get a bit anxious, and Matt advises him not to react. And this actually happened in one of the comics, but in that comic, he was found guilty, so I don't like to talk about that comic. A cop with that Punisher tattoo on his neck says to another cop, Torres can't testify. So it's officially revealed that a couple of folks are involved in this group, but his pins are also for the 15th precinct, where we first saw Hector getting his in-custody beatdown. We see another cop later dissatisfied with Nikki Torres on the stand, who I assume is also a member of that group. She has a precinct 20 on her collar, so they're all over. Muse's painting is probably correct. It's a bunch of different cops. It's not just the ones at the 15th precinct. It's not just a couple. It's a lot of them. Back in court, Matt knows Kristen is looking at the doors. This is simultaneously edited with clips of Cherry transporting Torres to court. However, he's been followed by 5-0, which isn't a good sign. Matt's learned, though, something about protecting witnesses over the years, and luckily, Cherry fakes out Powell and Torres makes it safely to the courthouse. Nikki is asked if he was passing off confidential information to the cops the night of the incident, and he shifts and looks over the courtroom. The camera focuses on different cops' faces, and it's like playing a game of Guess Who. We got the lady from precinct 20 sucking her teeth, this woman at 15 rolling her eyes to gauge the sergeant. We're left deciphering whether it's all of them or just some of them. Then Nikki lies and says he was at home all night blowing a hole in Matt's strategy. Now we're with Buck, and he's acting like the political version of Wesley with the criminal factions. He mentions how the Examiner, the New York newspaper, is posting front page headlines about the activities the factions are getting into. In a baller ass move, I must say, Buck version Wesley pays off the damage Luca did to Victor to squash this gang war. Then we get this even better exchange.
How about I pay $0 to Victor and you go tell Fisk if he's got something to say to me, he can come tell me himself. I don't take orders from the mayor's errand boy.
I don't work for the mayor. I work for the man.
Which, Lord, we know is Vanessa. Fisk didn't even care about these people. He said, let them be rats. Vanessa was looking to fix this mess, so she's got Buck playing 2 parts now. 2 parts. Matt, Cherry, and Kirsten regroup and devise a new defense strategy for Hector. Matt says their only move is to have Hector take the stand to tell the truth and hope for the best. Back with Vanessa and Fisk, this scene is shot to make me think the actors aren't actually there. There's no 2-shot. It's just them, then they cut to her, then they cut to him. Maybe he shot these scenes with the original actress they had cast, then when they recasted, they brought in the OG Vanessa back. They kept D'Onofrio's performance. They put her in, and they just had them kind of edit it to make it look like they were talking to each other. But I don't think they're shooting this in the same area at the same time. Because I'm also chronically online and very broke, wardrobe 8, giving Vanessa those damn Van Cleef earrings. Those earrings are probably like $5K. Yeah, I get it. She has expensive taste. I can't afford it. As we move on, we see an ad for Pingo Doce. Now with Guarana Kick. That's the recurring drink in the MCU that Edward Norton's Bruce Banner worked in the bottling plant and bled into the bottle in the Incredible Hulk. It's popped up in tons of places since then, and you can buy some at Avengers Campus in Disneyland. We return to the courtroom, and it's revealed that Hector and his wife live with his sister and niece. In the comics, he had 2 sisters, Awilda Ayala del Toro and Ava Ayala, and his niece was Angela del Toro. His niece, Angela, took up the mantle of White Tiger after him, and then after she retired, his sister Ava then took it up. So it's like a family affair. Hector tells us he had to put a deposit down at a place in the South Bronx for Soledad and him. South Bronx is where he grew up in New York in the comics. Matt then outs Hector as the White Tiger in court. He obviously had the evidence suppressed so that he could introduce it when he wanted to, when it would make the biggest impact, and the judge is pissed off. I could also name the millions of times outing yourself as a vigilante went sideways, but clearly Matt's smarter than me, and he knows somehow that Ayala and his family can defend his private and public life now, I guess. Hector tells Matt that he should have asked him first, and yes, he absolutely should have. Matt even recognizes they were losing, so he had to make a big swing, and I understand that. But what confuses me is whether winning is more important than the family of Hector Ayala, because there's a target now on his back, but not just on his family's back as well. Though it seemed like a double-edged sword the entire time, it seems this option brings more casualties in my opinion. Matt tells Hector he needs to stop being the White Tiger, and this conversation kind of plays out like it's Matt debating himself, trying to convince himself that Daredevil isn't who he is. Matt then puts people on the stand whom White Tiger saved, and Kristen reads into evidence a police report from a cop who White Tiger also saved, and a bunch of other police reports. The cops in the courtroom are not too pleased about this, but some look guilty, and one even nods when Matt says some of the cops in the room think of White Tiger as an ally. He says Officer Barlow, Officer Reyes, Officer Wong, Officer Morales, and Officer Grant, different versions of the same story. Also, yes, I recognize Officer Morales, like Miles' father could have potentially been name dropped here. Do I think he's here? No, but could they use this link to the greater MCU 10 years from now? Absolutely. To further the idea of Hector being a good man, they ask if this was a targeted attack, why would he go in there without his powerful amulet? Fair argument, because I wouldn't. Hawkbird then gives this long-winded argument about how good people can still do bad things, and the camera focuses on Hector and Matt, and narratively, we also recognize that this is pointed towards Matt, who has been battling his values and beliefs forever, understanding his anger and revenge, trying to do good and sometimes messing up and being pushed too far. Also, around this scene, you can see this isn't the actor Carmen de los Reyes, it's his double and stand-in. Though this might be due to reshoots, I also think it simply may just be that the actor was battling cancer. I don't know if this was shot before or after he passed, but sometimes, you know, a battle like this lasts a really long time, so he might have just needed a small break. I just don't know. Hawkberg then says,
"Real heroes don't need to hide."
And Matt looks down, slightly ashamed, but then he looks up to what I assume is God for guidance and permission to be like, yeah, dude, go put on that suit. It's all good with me and Jesus up here. And God just needs to lay it on him like that, because that's the only way he's going to put on a suit. If he goes through this entire series without that suit, he needs to put it back on. We cut to the New York skyline. The sun is rising, and look, I can't even see Avengers Tower. It might be to the far right, but I don't think that's the area. It's kind of upsetting because I know it's the MetLife building. I know what Avengers Towers looks like, and I do not see it in this layout. Just show it to me. I also understand I don't really know the layout of New York. I'm only from the West Coast, so what I know about New York's map is only what I've seen in Marvel movies, but I feel like I should be able to see it. I actually really like this scene. Matt enters an empty courtroom that resembles a lonely church. He sits in a pew seeking guidance. The light casts a glow on his tired frame as he fiddles with the broken devil horn. While Hector is on trial, clearly Daredevil is, metaphorically also on trial. Matt is haunted by the dilemma of what makes a hero, why heroes feel the need to hide when they're doing good, and what it truly means to even be good. Should he continue to seek justice through the law or take to the streets at night behind a mask? What do people even want? What does New York need? Is he only Daredevil because he feels guilty or because it's an obligation? Then we see some B-roll montage and sad music plays, and I like that the bus ad for the Top of the Rock, where you can buy tickets to the Top of the Rock observation deck. I almost did that once. We see one of the statues that stands upon the New York Supreme Courthouse. This is a figure representing the spirit of truth. She holds a mirror, a symbol of the reflection of man's true knowledge of himself. As we can see, it's framed upside down in a puddle's reflection. This is similar to how we introduced Fisk in this episode. I think both shots generally just symbolize a distorted perception of justice and law, and Fisk's internal struggle trying to put crime somewhat behind him and step into a better light. We see a flawed understanding of values unfolding in New York's MCU right now. On one hand, Fisk has always wanted to support this city, but he does it through terrible means. On the other hand, real criminals have infiltrated the NYPD and we're sentencing a man to life in prison for a crime that most of the people here know he didn't commit, all because of widespread corruption. These upside down shots reflect the political and unjust chaos that we're living in right now in New York's MCU. At this moment, I was clutching my damn pearls. If you watch our reaction, I'm 1 degree away from throwing myself through our TV. Hector's verdict, luckily, is not guilty across the board. Some of the cops in the room are also just freaking pissed about this. On his way out of the courtroom, different news outlets immediately ambush Matt and the team. Hector and Soledad smile big for New York 1 as Fisk angles himself to be the pro-cop anti-vigilante mayor as he watches it on the news. Back at home, Matt and Heather cook dinner, and Matt tells Heather about how Foggy and him bought a bottle of O'Melvany's and swore to drink it if they ever won a case. This is the booze Foggy said was behind the bar in episode 1. To keep up tradition, he does so with Heather. We see Matt navigating cooking as a blind person. He puts his fingers on the rim of the glass as he pours the booze. He lifts the pot lid and feels for the steam coming out with his hand. I think he's just doing this stuff kind of performatively, since if he was alone, he would probably just hear how fast something was boiling. Heather says, "May God hold them all in the hollow of his hand." This is part of an Irish blessing, so I guess she's also supposed to be Irish and from Hell's Kitchen, so it makes sense why Kristen thought they'd hit it off. This is also the title of the episode, looky there. Fisk calls Hector's verdict a miscarriage of justice, and when BB points out that the jury found him not guilty, Fisk says juries can get it wrong and he should know, because he's been sent to jail for for things he's done millions of times. He has done only bad things. Una Palabra by Carlos Valera plays as he watched Hector tie his boots. He looks back at himself as Fisk continues speaking, claiming vigilantes are threats to any society that's based on the rule of the law. The two lights glow around him as he dons his mask, framing Hector in his reflection with a cross in the background. The light and the cross and the symbolism of the White Tiger, its power, its protection. Hector couldn't even stop himself from putting on that damn suit. Fisk calls him a coward as he strolls in the dark fog streets for someone needing help. That's when he hears a single shattered glass, followed by a woman's scream, and then out of nowhere, a man steps out of the shadows and shoots Hector in the head. Fisk then says the rule of law must prevail, the understanding that every single person must follow the law. But of course, those rules do not apply to Vanessa, because why would they ever? Then we see the man who did this, who we presume is a cop wearing the Punisher logo, and the scene cuts to the credits. The Punisher logo is a little off, right? Its nose is a little more shaped than defined. And regardless, we assume this isn't our Frank Castle, but someone in the same group as the cops we saw with those tattoos. We know that Jeremy Earl is joining the cast as Cole North, an anti-vigilante NYPD detective from the Chip Zdarsky run of the comics, who on this show runs an anti-vigilante task force of cops who idolize the Punisher. So I'm guessing this is probably him. The episode ends with the Coquis whistling and water sloshing sounds. Hector desperately wanted to hear these again. Matt promised Hector to see the beach again and reunite with his family, and ultimately this is a broken promise for Matt, as Hector never gets to hear the Coquis or the water sloshing again. However, I like to believe, because it makes me sleep well at night, that this is still all true for Hector's afterlife, and he lives amongst it all again, getting to hear the Coquis and the water sloshing. The ending feels even worse, knowing the legacy Carmen de los Reyes is sadly leaving behind, but it's more reason to remember this actor's role and how upset it made us. If he was alive, he'd be so happy to see how mad we all are for him. Like Erik mentioned in our reaction, because Hector's dead doesn't mean his niece can't take on the mantle, or even his sister. In my opinion, the likelihood of that happening as soon as possible is pretty slim, but the moniker could live on and should live on. All you need is the amulet. And if it makes you feel better, in the comics, the amulet had more than one piece to form the one that Hector had on. So if there's other pieces out there, his niece could grab it and be even more powerful. I'm so scared to see what episode 4 is gonna give us, especially following Fisk's new initiative to rid New York of vigilantes, and he's doing it in a way that's just having people come on the street, shoot people in the head. What kind of, someone shoot him in the head. And I pray Frank shows up to beat their ass into submission. Comment down below with your thoughts on episode 3. Are you mad? Are you sad? It's heartbreaking. And a reminder that you can continue the conversation with us every week on the Break Room channel every Wednesday morning for our Daredevil After Show live stream. Follow us on socials, subscribe to all 3 channels in the New Rockstars Network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching. R.I.P.